Hello everyone. I would invite you to take your seats. We're going to start. Donc, bonjour tout le monde. Je m'appelle Jérémy Boulanger-Bonnelly. Je suis sur le comité d'organisation de la conférence, mais aussi professeur adjoint à l'université McGill à Montréal. Et j'ai le grand plaisir de modérer ce panel. The first thing I want to say is there will be presentations in French and in English. So if you do need translation, please make sure you're all set up because there's going to be both languages in this panel. We have 4 excellent speakers today to present on this team, making knowledge usable, language, literacy, and legitimacy and justice. And so we'll explore together how law, language, and institutional culture can empower people or keep them excluded from the justice system. So the presentations will focus on very interesting topics, as you'll see, on knowledge, the translation of knowledge, and how that all shapes the participation of different people in the justice system and beyond. So I will briefly introduce each speaker, but I won't take too much time on that because we want to have time for presentations and questions. I invite you to go on the program on the website to see the full bios of our speakers. They're too long for me to present everything. And each presenter is going to have about 13 minutes, which will give us about 20 minutes at the end for questions. So please note your questions down, and we're going to get there at some point. So our first speaker is Kirsten Kreitz. Kirsten is a notary emeritus, accredited mediator, and law lecturer. He holds a master's degree in conflict studies from St. Paul University in Ottawa, and is currently a doctoral candidate in law at Université Laval, where his research focuses on dispute prevention and resolution law, people-centered access to justice, and the impact of technology on legal practice. He also teaches in these areas at the University of Ottawa and the University du Québec en Outaouais. His paper is entitled People-Centered Justice or Person-Centered Justice, an epistemological distinction with practical implications for access to justice. So the floor is yours, and you have 13 minutes.
Okay, okay, so hi everyone. I'm just going to adjust everything. So basically, let me start by a small puzzle. If we look at the conference guide, we can see already that there's many ways of talking of the same thing. People-centered justice, user-centric justice. And there's others also focusing on different aspects that are centered too. But basically, my presentation is basically based on person-centered justice. Well, not all, but basically it's on that topic. So basically, we have many terms that we're using right now. We're not sure exactly, are they saying the same thing? And so that puzzled me a lot because in French it's kind of easy. It's conception centrée sur la personne or sur les personnes. So if you see, it's just a matter of numbers of person, and that could not be it. It should be something else. So I went through this, and basically I kind of observed that maybe one of the problem we have is that it's from how we conceptualize, and this is the part where we got talking about the conception itself. And this is more epistemological, and this is a hard word for me to say in English, but to be honest with you, let's keep it simple, okay? Do we have the proper lens to understand or to give sense to that meaning of these different words? And are they sharing the same subject? So that was basically my first observation. And to do this, I went through the literature and find out, yeah, of course, Carl Rogers I've already discussed about the person-centered approach. 1950, he had done a lot of work in that. So that was my first start. So I review the literature there and find something very interesting. And I believe that it's kind of a paradigm shift in our way to conceive these terms. Okay, so the first thing, of course, the person-centered conception approach is based on the fact that we are, yes, centering on a person, not an individual, but a person. So basically it means that this person have a personality, and it is considered as a unit. In therapy, Rogers refuted the idea that we can, from outside, dictate, diagnose, and say, this is the treatment you should use or take. Rogers is coming from an organismic literature, philosophy, approach that consider that all human are living organism, like include human being, have all the ability to reorganize themselves, to adjust to their environment. And so instead of saying you have this diagnosis, it says the therapist will go and not direct, but actively process the procedure of reorganizing himself to readjust with his ecosystem. It looks not accessible, but when you think about it, if you meet a client, if you're a lawyer, you meet a client, and he's talking about his legal problem, that's good. But with experience, you're going to ask other questions. With what is this person for you? What is the meaning of this for you? What is this? This is basically the person-centered approach. So this is not accessible for us, but it is centered on it. The big difference is that we do not intervene on that unit. It's the unit itself, the locus of transformation. It's within the unit and not from outside. And that is the first paradigm shift that literature brings me. Okay, so now I'm only discussing about the person-centered. All right. So what is the people-centered? Okay. So when we review OCD's documentation, we can see that we really want to take the experience into account. But what is this experience? Is it collective or is it a community experience? And these two terms reveal two different dimensions. A collective is usually defined from outside. We have a group of people that share some traits. We can identify them and regroup them together. It has nothing to say nothing has been said that they are a unit. They are just kind of the same. We can make some assumption on that. But now let's talk about a community. And from Roger's perspective, a community, it's not exactly the way we're using it. A family, it's a community. So even if I live or not with the mother of my child, for my child, our family, it's a unit. It has its own experience, and it could consider from Roger's perspective as a community. So how we can adjust the approach of Rogers to a community? Well, if we consider that it gets to the level of such a unit, it's within the community that has its own experience, personality would adjust or reorganize themselves to benefit of his relation in this ecosystem. That is very interesting. That is another paradigm shift. So we are not, Rogers allowed us, through his literature, to define maybe that people, and that is coherent with the vision of the OCD's framework. It is also. So now let's talk about what is our role in there. So if we have a unit that is transforming itself, what are we doing? I already gave the answer earlier. We act like a facilitator. I prefer the term conciliator because there's something more precise in that term. And it's just me. You don't have to accept it, okay? But we are active in the process of transformation, but non-directive in the outcome. So what does this mean? Well, I had some clients that came see me. I have a few clients. Let's say many clients. I'm that good, okay? So I had some clients that came see me, and they thought that they had a hidden defect. And we review everything. I could go directly to what is the evidence, what is this, what is that, is that in conformity with... But the first thing is what is this experience for you? What it means for you? Do you and assess if they have resources available or information that, if are available, will help them to reorganize. Some people, I'm not going to go through the process because it's on one-on-one. You agree with that. But I can say that some people, when after doing this process with them, I'll do my research, I'll come back, and most of the time I'm going to say, it's going to be hard, it's going to be expensive, and it's going to take a long time. And some of them will just stop the process. Not because they don't have the resources. It's because the process that I went through with them helped them to reorganize themselves, and they are totally in a resolution state, and they are ready to move on. And that thing of moving on, we saw that in many of our files, and that is basically what Rogers will call an actualization of the personality. So if you want to understand the term, basically, Goldstein, the organismic master in that field, considered that all living organism is motivated by a tendency to actualize himself. So every day we get up, and the reason why we get up and we move on is because we want to actualize ourselves. Maybe in a future paper, I'll make a link of, is this a state of injustice to not be able to actualize myself? Maybe from a person-centered conception, maybe, I don't know, that's something that could be studied later on, but I can see these links right there. I can see the meaning of justice, it's different when we're looking through this lens. So our job is basically, from Rogers' teaching, will be to guide our client that are in state of injustice to reorganize so that the transformation happen within the unit. In law, that would probably link to prevention law. To be honest, that probably be linked to that kind of field. This is what I think. But now, the state, what is his job? What is his role? Well, the first principle is that we do not intervene on the environment. We do not intervene on the outcome. The state doesn't have a relation with a person, nor a community. Yeah, it does, but they don't interact directly. They're acting more like a meta-institutional partner in that. So, what is their job? What is a responsive state? Is this basically a state that promote, found, research, provide guideline, train, conciliator to provide these kind of service or approach? That could be in conformity all the way with what Rogers would consider like a proper approach in this kind of situation. I'm not sure. I'm just like sharing this hypothesis, because a state with or without intervention, like it's going to change the structure, it's going to change the ecosystem, and that is not in line with what Rogers said. I'm not saying that it should not. Thank you. I'm not saying that it should not do anything. I'm saying that from that specific conception, the state, this is not its role. From a traditional conception, I would say, of access to justice, I would say yes, of course. But that they are not in a position, they're just different lenses of not the same thing, but not the same. It's like if I take my glasses and I have one side that I can see the person conception, and the other side, let's do this, I can see the people conception. The state helped to build the glasses. I tried to keep it very simple. It took me 1.5 years to go through all this. I can have a long talk on that. It's more philosophical and more theoretical than it looks. But I'm just like offering this maybe solution to finally decide, clarify if there's a distinction, and if so, does that change our approach, or does that give us like the proper tool to develop this field that I think is very, very interesting, and what is missing right now. So this is what I have to say today.
Thank you. And we brandish people-centered justice all around, or person-centered justice, so I do appreciate some theoretical work going into defining that more, so thank you for that. Our next speaker is Éliane Boucher. Éliane is a PhD candidate in law at the University of Ottawa. She's worked as a legislative counsel with the Department of Justice Canada since 2021, so interesting perspective there as well. And her research focuses on the accessibility of legislative text written in French. Elle va nous présenter son travail sous le titre que vous avez à l'écran ici, Nouvelles données sur la compréhension des textes de loi québécois par le public et sur le langage clair en droit.
Merci, Jérémy. OK, parfait, ça fonctionne bien. Donc, l'étude que je vous présente aujourd'hui a été réalisée en 2024 auprès de personnes qui ne sont pas des juristes et elle portait donc sur la compréhension et sur la perception des textes de loi. Je suis ici à titre de doctorante en droit et non en tant que représentante du ministère de la Justice du Canada. My presentation will be made in French. However, feel free to ask your questions in the official language of your choice. Voilà. Il y a eu un certain engouement pour les questions de plain language, langage clair, dans les années 90-2000. Ça a généré beaucoup d'études intéressantes en termes d'interaction entre la rédaction législative et les questions de langage clair. Toutefois, il n'y a pas de données qui ont été générées par rapport vraiment au contexte de rédaction en droit civil ou en français. Le contexte actuel également de l'interaction avec les textes de loi a grandement évolué, vous en conviendrez, depuis l'époque. Il y a une proportion sans cesse grandissante de gens qui se représentent seuls, qui ne sont pas représentés. Et il y a aussi un changement complet dans la manière dont les textes de loi sont disponibles. Tout est disponible en ligne maintenant. Ce que je cherchais à faire, c'est de tester si certaines approches théoriques pour l'application des théories du langage clair au droit civil fonctionnaient en pratique, oui ou non. Mauvais bouton. L'étude que j'ai menée visait à savoir si le langage clair donc, permettait d'améliorer deux choses différentes. Donc, d'un côté, la compréhension du texte de loi, mais aussi la perception du texte de loi par les citoyens. Et j'ai travaillé à la réécriture, à la réorganisation de certaines dispositions du Code de procédure civile du Québec qui portent spécifiquement sur la procédure applicable en matière de recouvrement des petites créances. J'ai choisi ces dispositions-là parce que, pour ceux qui ne sont pas familiers avec la procédure civile au Québec, la division des petites créances est un endroit où on est tenu de se représenter soi-même. On ne peut pas être représenté par avocat. Ma logique était, si tout le monde doit se représenter seul, tout le monde devrait pouvoir comprendre la procédure en grande naïveté. Mais donc, j'ai travaillé à la réécriture du texte en essayant d'adopter le plus possible le point de vue du justiciable comme étant l'ancrage du texte, parce que souvent, et puis on en a parlé un peu ce matin dans le panel, on a une tendance à rédiger les lois en mettant le système ou l'État ou l'appareil administratif au centre plutôt que les acteurs, les personnes qui sont concernées. J'ai aussi retravaillé à réorganiser les articles pour essayer d'amener peut-être un ordre un peu plus chronologique, scinder des articles en deux ou en plusieurs parties. J'ai travaillé aussi sur le style et la syntaxe. Surtout, il y a certaines caractéristiques du français législatif en droit civil, par exemple des inversions, des elisions, qui ne sont pas caractéristiques de la manière dont on rédige le français normalement, si je puis dire. Le résultat est un texte qui est malheureusement un peu plus complexe quand même que ce que j'aurais voulu, mais qui avait néanmoins un indice de lisibilité, un fog index moins élevé que le texte original. Les participants à l'étude étaient une trentaine de personnes qui provenaient surtout de la région de Gatineau, parce que, je suis à l'Université d'Ottawa, je suis résidente de Gatineau aussi. Donc, c'est ici que j'ai mené l'étude. En âge variait, donc vous voyez là, entre 18-25 ans et plus de 76 ans, des revenus familiaux annuels déclarés très variés, un dernier niveau de scolarité complété très varié. Par contre, j'avais une forte représentation de personnes ayant complété des études au cycle supérieur. C'est peut-être un facteur de la région ici qu'il y a une forte proportion de fonctionnaires donc qui ont souvent complété des études du niveau baccalauréat ou maîtrise. Comme je disais tout à l'heure, il n'y avait aucun professionnel du droit parmi l'échantillon. 11 personnes ont complété le questionnaire à l'aide de la version originale du texte, donc le Code de procédure civile tel qu'il se lit actuellement. 19 ont participé avec la version réécrite. C'était réparti parfaitement aléatoirement, là, donc c'est de ce que les astres ont donné. 4 personnes ont par la suite pris part à une discussion en groupe afin de discuter plus en profondeur des questions de perception du texte de droit. Je me rends compte que c'est vraiment petit, désolée. La première partie de l'étude a été un questionnaire en ligne qui visait à tester l'impact de la réécriture et de la réorganisation du texte sur la compréhension que les personnes en ont. Pour tester la compréhension, l'impact de la réécriture sur la compréhension, il y a des petites mises en situation et les participants devaient lire un article et ensuite déterminer, est-ce que la personne dans la mise en situation peut faire ceci ou cela? Si oui, pourquoi? Sinon, pourquoi? Ce que ça a permis de déterminer, c'est que malgré ce qu'on pourrait en penser, la longueur des phrases en tant que telle n'est pas déterminante, mais par contre, le travail de réécriture vraiment et de changement de la structure de la phrase est plus important. Également, sans surprise, réécrire un article en adoptant le point de vue des personnes aide les personnes à comprendre ce qui se passe et peut même amener à faire en sorte que le vocabulaire juridique en tant que tel n'est pas réellement un problème si là, le terme technique s'insère dans une phrase qui est réécrite du point de vue de la personne. Ensuite, pour tester l'impact de la réorganisation des articles, les participants ont été appelés à consulter un court extrait du texte de loi et à devoir sélectionner un article en disant comme ça, c'est l'article qui pourrait m'aider à répondre à la question X. Cet exercice-là permet de conclure que l'étalement vertical du texte, donc que ce soit par l'ajout d'énumération verticale, découpage en alinéas, scission d'articles en plusieurs alinéas, permet d'améliorer la compréhension. Cependant, les participants se sont très rarement rendus jusqu'à la fin du texte. Donc, peu importe la version qu'ils avaient obtenue, quand l'article en tant que tel, qui était la bonne réponse, se trouvait vers la fin du texte, ils ont répondu avec un article qui leur semblait peut-être adéquat, mais qui était situé plus haut dans le texte. Donc, il y a globalement pas d'amélioration vraiment qui a été marquée sur le plan de la réécriture, ne serait-ce que, sauf pour la question du point de vue. L'amélioration, par contre, était notable là, sur le plan de la réorganisation du texte. Comme je disais, la seconde partie de l'étude a porté sur la perception des textes de loi, une discussion en groupe, et moi, ça a été ma partie préférée, cette discussion-là, et c'est ce que je pense qui a généré les données les plus intéressantes. Les gens, ce qui en ressorti, sans surprise, les gens sont frustrés, les gens se sentent désœuvrés, se sont mal outillés face à la loi. Et ça, c'est combiné, sans surprise, à un manque de confiance envers les avocats ou les acteurs du système de justice. Le sentiment d'injustice, surtout, est beaucoup revenu. Et puis, comme je disais, j'avais une population devant moi qui est peut-être un peu plus éduquée que la moyenne, mais ce qui ressortait, c'était toujours, si même moi, j'arrive pas à comprendre, comme, tu sais, qu'en est-il des autres qui ne sont pas, qui ne sont pas ici? Donc, il y avait toujours cette question-là qui revenait de comment est-ce qu'on peut rendre le système plus accessible. On a eu tout un débat sur qu'est-ce que constitue un texte accessible. Il y était comme, il faudrait que tout le monde puisse comprendre. C'était comme, non, il faudrait que ce soit seulement... Il faudrait qu'un enfant de 8 ans puisse comprendre. Quelqu'un était comme, non, c'est quelqu'un qui a réussi ses cours de philo au cégep et est capable de comprendre un texte de loi, ça me convient. Donc, ça a été une discussion qui était vraiment fascinante. Puis, ce qui est ressorti, encore une fois, sur le plan du texte lui-même, c'est qu'on me donnait des exemples. Bien, ce texte-là qui est réécrit, j'ai l'impression qu'il s'adresse à moi. On dit comme, tu sais, au lieu de prendre le système ou l'État comme point de vue de base, si on fait le changement vers les personnes, les gens s'en rendent compte, les gens l'apprécient, et ça atténue un peu cette espèce de distance avec le texte de loi. Peut-être aussi brièvement, je ne sais pas combien de temps il me reste. OK, j'ai encore du temps. Parfait. Puis, ce que moi, comme légiste, comme rédactrice législative, j'ai trouvé intéressant, c'est que ce que les participants ont considéré qui était du vocabulaire juridique technique, c'est pas nécessairement quelque chose que moi, comme professionnelle, j'aurais considéré comme un terme technique. Il y a un article en question où on parle que les demandes pour une somme d'au plus 15 000 sont admissibles pour la division des petites créances. Et puis cette expression-là, au plus 15 000 on était comme, personne ne parle comme ça. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? Je ne sais pas. Et dans la version réécrite, je pense que j'avais quelque chose comme une somme pour un maximum de 15 000 Puis l'emploi du terme maximum, même si techniquement c'est un terme latin, je veux dire, ça fait partie de ce que les gens utilisent comme texte, comme vocabulaire dans leur vie de tous les jours. Et donc ça, pour eux, c'était plus accessible. Mais j'aurais jamais pensé que tu sais, moi, je me disais qu'on parle de demande conventionnelle, on parle de, tu sais, il y a plein d'autres termes techniques dans le texte de loi, mais non, sur quoi les gens ont accroché souvent, c'était, à mon avis, des questions de style plus que des questions de vocabulaire. Donc, parfait. Super. Donc, en conclusion, je crois que c'est ce qui est possible de faire comme légiste, oui, mais aussi comme personne qui communique le droit. Puis j'ai vraiment hâte d'entendre les présentations qui suivent d'autres exemples de communication du droit. C'est vraiment mettre l'accent sur le point de vue des personnes. La compréhension. C'est pas surprenant, je crois, que le travail sur le texte de loi à lui seul ne permette qu'une amélioration limitée de la compréhension, parce que ça demeure un texte normatif qui a une vocation distincte. Donc, il y a moyen de peut-être un peu réduire l'écart, mais le texte de loi à lui seul ne peut pas combler l'écart dans son entièreté. Par contre, je crois que si on pouvait combiner des documents d'explication qui sont vraiment rédigés du point de vue du justiciable avec un texte de loi qui, lorsque possible, est rédigé de cette manière-là un peu plus, ça fonctionne. Puis, ce que moi j'en retiens aussi, c'est vraiment de ne pas sous-estimer l'importance des textes ou des outils dans justement le lien de confiance entre les justiciables et les institutions. Donc, la justice centrée sur les personnes, la personne qui importe, plutôt que sur le système lui-même, a une composante textuelle. Et c'est ça. Donc, c'est ouais,
Merci beaucoup, Éliane. Très intéressante comme étude et comme donnée. Puis on pourrait peut-être même aller plus loin puis se dire si les gens participaient un peu plus à la rédaction des lois, peut-être que ce feedback serait intégré au fur et à mesure du processus. Donc, très intéressant. Merci. Our third speaker now. So you will see that we moved from theory to how we design the laws, and now we're going to talk a bit more about how we communicate that knowledge, and we try to reach out to people. So our third speaker is Daisy Wayuni. Daisy is the website services coordinator at Courthouse Libraries, British Columbia. In that role, she draws on her librarianship background and extensive experience working with the public legal information sector in BC. She's also led the Click Law Re-Envisioning project, which transformed the website into a new digital service from the library in 2024. She will be presenting on early learning from a year of Click Law as a digital service for British Columbians.
Thank you. Just going to start my timer first. Good morning. I'm Daisy Wayuni from Courthouse Libraries, British Columbia. I am responsible for the operations of our website services, and in that role, I work with a team of librarians who create and maintain our digital content. And I myself are trained as, we're trained as librarian too. I will introduce you first to our organization and ClickLaw, then walk you through some of the data we've gathered during the first year of ClickLaw, organized by some of the outcomes that we are trying to measure. We are a law library. We serve both the legal community and the public in British Columbia. And last year, we just celebrated our 50th anniversary as the province's public law library. Our vision is for everyone in BC to have ready access to the legal information and resources they need. And our mission is to support access to justice by providing the legal community and public with legal resources, librarian expertise, and informed referrals to help people research and manage their own or their clients' legal issues. We are also a nonprofit organization, and we receive funding from the Law Foundation of BC and the Law Society of BC. And the BC Ministry of the Attorney General provides us with space in courthouses around the province. We also receive some special proposed funds from the Notary Foundation of BC for ClickLaw re-envisioning project, the library collection expansion, and our IT modernization project. So that's a bit of a background from what our libraries do, and more about it. Physically, our work takes place in 30 courthouse libraries across the province with 8 locations in multiple places, staffed by full-time law librarians, and they assist clients with information requests received by phone, email, or in person. So through our selection of services, we try to meet people where they are throughout their legal journey by providing access to resources and information in print or digitally. We also provide public computers for anyone that have electronic database subscriptions, in addition to book mailout service and document delivery service. For today, I will focus on ClickLaw, which is our service delivered via website, so www.clicklaw.bc.ca. And that website is there to help people in the province find plain language legal information and resources from trusted organizations in the province. We just had this website redesigned and launched as a new website with a new operations model on June 19, 2024. And as one of our digital services, the ClickLaw website allows our librarians to provide legal information and informed referrals to the public, even when they cannot make it into one of our libraries. ClickLaw, the website itself, has lots of information structured in different ways that would help people find relevant resources. So on the site, we have topic pages, common question pages, a searchable directory of public legal information, and a searchable directory of free or lower cost legal help and services. A topic page on the site, for example, guides people to legal information they need, and each page includes online guides and resources selected by our librarians. And a common question page that I mentioned before provides guiding steps, other key information, and selected services for a certain scenario. We write these pages when it's something that our public clients ask often enough, but the relevant information is probably buried or not easy to find, or when the clients would benefit from having connected multiple resources to get to the next step. So at the library, we have access to expertly curated print and digital collections, in addition to the close ties we maintain with public legal information providers around the province. So these relationships and resources provide the foundation of ClickLaw's content. So where does the librarian expertise come in then? So we cannot provide legal advice. Law librarians cannot do that, but we can point clients to the resources and services that can help them get to their questions answered and get them pointed in the right direction. So right now we have over 20 law librarians working across the province who have interactions with public clients every day. Some of them were or are now members in the ClickLaw content team, and they are using this specialized hands-on expertise to curate content for the public, particularly in the selection and creation of common questions. These common questions, written in plain language, are drawn from real-life experience. So we've seen the references and resources that we provide online help people in person through our interactions. In summary, through ClickLaw, we gather legal resources in one place to help British Columbians find accurate, understandable information and feel confident in their legal research. As part of our content strategy, we have identified several business and client outcomes for the website itself. So the first three here are outcomes based on business goals. And the last one is an outcome based on client goals. So these are not all of them, but just for the purpose of today's panel. We will be looking at quantitative data from Google Analytics for today, because that's mostly what we have gathered. And I'll tell you more about the future plan or the current plan. The first outcome is ClickLaw is easily found by clients. That's a business, part of a business goal. The indicators for this outcome are users and sessions. And a bit of a background, the site was soft launched on June 19, 2024, and then officially launched with more content in November the same year. We can already, from the data, we can see a decline of 36% in the number of users visiting the site when we compare the first year of operation, so starting on June 19, 2024 onward to the previous year when it was still the old website. And this is not something unique to ClickLaw, but something experienced by other website owners across the board. Many analyses have been published about the connection of this trend of declining website traffic with Google's AI overview and ChatGPT and how they change the way people find information online for the past maybe couple or 3 years even. So we've gathered this baseline. So we've got some total users and sessions for the first calendar year, so 2025. So we can, at least for the first one, we can see that the site is still found by clients through Google searches, referral from other websites, and some other ways. So the second outcome is that ClickLaw is promoted by stakeholders. It is well known as a reliable service. And an indicator for this outcome that we use is referral traffic. So from Google Analytics, we can see which websites send people to ClickLaw, and this is called referrals. And the top three were BC government website, family law in bc.ca, and Supreme Court bc.ca. The latter two are public legal information websites that are operated by a nonprofit called Justice Education Society of BC, so partner organization in the province. We can see that for referrals traffic, a session lasted for 4 minutes, 45 seconds on average, which is about a minute longer than if the users come from or came from Google organic traffic. The third outcome here is that clients understand what the site is for and use it accordingly. For this one, we use engagement rate as an indicator. The engagement rate is the percentage of engaged sessions, and an engaged session is when it lasts more than 10 seconds, has 2 or more page views, or other criteria that Google Analytics has set up. We normally want to, or depending on the site's purpose, here for ClickLaw, we want to see relatively high engagement rate, as that could mean clients reading the content for more than 10 seconds and clicking on outbound links, for example. But that is still something that we will need to check with some other data. clients who came from referral sources engaged the most with click law, as opposed to clients who came from Google searches. Among the top 5 referral sources, the engagement rate is 70% to 89%, which looks good so far. And this data encourages us to continue working with partner organizations. We could review how click law is described on this website and their websites and suggest improvements as needed. For the last outcome here is that clients find their way to sources that give them more information on their legal issue. The last outcome here is based on client goals. Engagement rate and average engagement time are also useful data here still. We are using the same indicator as the previous outcome, but now we're looking at data for topic pages versus comment questions. We're also looking at the number of clicks to outbound links. Here, 85% of the sessions involving topic pages were engaged sessions, and on average, a user spent 53 seconds engaging with the website. Overall, these users click on outbound links 26,000 times. And so this is important. Outbound links is important for click law because we're directing people to other legal information out there. Okay. So, and here are the top 3 legal topics and subtopic pages. And as for comment question, the engagement rate was lower, but on average, a user spent more time engaging with the site, which makes sense because they're reading a whole page. And again, this is something that we still need to check again with more data gathering like user testing. And here are top 5 common questions in 2025 for click law. And here are top 3 outbound links. And I'm going to skip forward to summary. So looking at some indicators, we can say that click law was found and used by clients after a switch from the old site to the new. But the challenge now is to be creative with our effort to reach the public, and we are already experimenting with some things. Second, we will continue working with partner organizations so they could understand when to refer people to click law. And third, we will gather qualitative data from user surveys and user testing and look for more data elsewhere with other methods, and also our click law team will give priority to the most popular pages in our content review process. So I'm gonna close with some of the things that we are already doing for more data collection and will continue to do. All right, so I'm done.
Perfect, thank you. Interesting initiative and ways to present content. So our last but certainly not least speaker is Kirsten Wurmann. Kirsten is a librarian with a background in public legal education, public libraries, and prisons. She currently works for the Manitoba Library Association, the Prison Libraries Committee, and the Manitoba Law Library with the Legal Information for Incarcerated Manitobans project. And she will present on that project, so making meaning through story, creating legal information access for all.
Thanks. Yeah, the librarians really represented on this panel, so that's awesome.
That's great.
Just to sort of situate myself a little bit in the work that I do, I am a white settler of European descent. I live on Treaty 1 territory and the homeland of the Red River Métis. The work that I do with the Prison Libraries Committee and with the Legal Information Project reaches Treaties 1, 2, 3, and 5 territories, as well as the homeland of the Métis Nation, but also northern Manitoba, which includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. The nations of these territories and many of the folks that we serve inside prisons have been impacted by these treaties, and many of those promises the treaties made remain unfulfilled. We do this work acknowledging the ongoing and often harmful effects of colonization that have resulted in the criminalization and over-incarceration of the Indigenous community. I share this acknowledgement, very aware of my own continued learning, listening, and action that I must take to move forward in the spirit of reconciliation. So, foundational belief in our work is that the incarcerated person has rights. The right to access information, the right to learn. Access to justice is not just about access to legal clinics. As Lucy, I think it was, on the panel earlier said today, often people end up in justice systems when other systems have failed. Information access, all information, not just legal information, is a human right which is being denied to incarcerated people in institutions in Manitoba and to many incarcerated folks across the country. CSC, Correctional Services Canada, just eliminated all librarians and library staff, technicians from federal prisons, as well as many educators and teachers. A huge blow to access to information and, I would argue, access to justice. The Prison Libraries Committee, PLC, is a volunteer committee of about 50 plus members of the Manitoba Library Association. We had our first meeting way back in 2011, and we now provide books and some sort of library service programming to all provincial prisons in Manitoba. There are no real libraries in Manitoba prisons, certainly not staffed by professionals, nor something that would mirror what you would find on the outside of prison. And despite many thanks and speeches by Justice and Corrections for our work, there's no funding other than the fundraising that we do, including a big book drive and book sale we are having on June 13th in Winnipeg. We operate with a community development model. I think nowadays we talk about co-design. While many of the PLC are librarians, professors, lawyers, law students, writers, highly educated people, we don't see ourselves as experts. We are all learners in a very, very unfamiliar space, and we try to be participant-led and information and evidence-based. We meet folks where they're at, literally in prison, in the halfway houses. We have respect for all literacies, or lack thereof, and for the lived experience and knowledge that the incarcerated person has about themselves, their community, and society. We truly try to center the person, the people, the human, and not the institution. So with that in mind, any time one works with an incarcerated community, it's important to keep in mind an awareness of the specialized needs of these folks, the low literacy, mental health and addictions issues, intergenerational trauma, the institutional barriers that exist, and the systemic racism and colonial practices that are still in place within all of these institutions, not just prisons, libraries, universities. Meanwhile, this work is being done in an environment described by Ivan Zinger, the former and not yet replaced correctional investigator, who said back in 2020, the current state of inmate access to information and technology is backward and obsolete. So an important and our one and only fully funded project, thank you Manitoba Law Foundation, is a partnership and collaboration with the Manitoba Law Library. Karen Zawatsky and I have spent the last 3 years working on the Legal Information for Incarcerated Manitobans initiative, looking at the unmet legal information needs and trying to break those substantial barriers to accessing justice that incarcerated and especially Indigenous folks face. The more we work and learn, the more we realize that more work and more learning needs to happen. And the barriers that exist to access legal information, any information, medical, cultural, mental health, community, all of which is interconnected and intertwined really with legal information, is a huge barrier. There's no internet. There's censorship, often random censorship that's not following any guidelines. Bureaucracy, which I can understand that needs to exist perhaps with prisons. Racism, and sometimes just simply withholding information from incarcerated folks for whatever reason, be it punitive, personal, or otherwise. Again, from Ivan Zinger from 2023 in his report, Spirit Matters, on nearly every measure of correctional performance, the correctional system seems to perpetuate conditions of disadvantage and discrimination for Indigenous people. In Manitoba, at the Manitoba Youth Centre, at the Women's Prison, 80 to 90% are Indigenous. So we began our legal information project by conducting research, surveys, and gathering anecdotal evidence. So these are just some of the questions that came up, and some of them were really basic. What is an appeal? What makes a federal offense different from a provincial offense? And some were really more personal. Tell me everything that would get me the best situation because I'm not an animal or a loser. Or I want to learn all the information about the mind and why we do bad things. So there's no time to go into all the details of what we've done for the last couple of years, but to help meet that unmet need, we have created law library collections of print materials. In the words of my library colleague Desi, expertly curated, that you can now find in every provincial prison in Manitoba. We've done presentations, we've created plain language FAQs, I was making a lot of notes while you were speaking, and we've made available the toll-free 1-800 number for the Manitoba Law Library in all prisons, so it's a free call for prison folks to get in touch. I don't want that to actually start. Okay. We also did a lot of speaking to folks who were or are incarcerated, like Ava from the Buffalo Sage House in Edmonton, and we heard many of the same things being brought up. It's really hard to get any kind of legal information when you're inside. No one talks to you about this stuff. I didn't know who the lawyer was. I didn't even talk to anybody until I had my thing in court. So hearing all this, hearing the questions, creating the collections, this was all great, but we also wanted to create a resource with community, with folks who have that lived experience in mind and as co-creators. And that could also meet the low literacy needs and the multimodal needs of our users. So our final project, easy peasy, is the creation of a graphic novel. It's been quite the experience. Graphic novels, of course, as many of us are aware, and there's some great examples here, many which were actually written, published in Manitoba. They combine text, images, color, and shapes to help tell a narrative. They can provide a more equitable learning experience by addressing different approaches to literacy and multiple modes of sharing the information. In addition to addressing those literacy issues, we hope that by offering the multi-modes of communication, using images, colors, shapes, we can help communicate, maybe make some sense of legal information and the justice experiences, and build some legal capability and access to justice. And importantly, to humanize the experience of working through the legal and justice system. The artists we are working with are all Indigenous, Métis, non-white, or queer. Here are some thumbnails of the first thumbnails. We have other ones now for our cover art. Mark Zastra is a Métis artist, and there is really a depth of the approach of the artist to this work. He's offered few different options with his reasoning behind each one. I think we are leaning towards choice B, depicting the 7 teachings. He says, whether you are Indigenous or not, you are going to need all of 7 of these teachings to navigate the colonial justice system. So what I did was I met with justice-involved folks, formerly incarcerated people, and I collected the narratives about their experiences interacting with the justice system. And those narratives are going to be interspersed by legal primers throughout the book. Yesterday, I think it was the Chief Justice, I think it was that said, access to justice is the greatest challenge to the rule of law today. So the idea is that after reading about someone's experience with arrest, with bail, with sentencing, there will be a legal primer that describes what the law says about those topics, and often they do not match. As a white settler, I realized that I was about to meet with folks, and we needed to make sure that we were going about this in a good way. And so we hired a content and cultural consultant for the graphic novel to help with this work, to work with the ethics and respect that is central to the Indigenous ways of knowing and doing. And so we hope to then have what Jasmine earlier also said, that we can start to offer culturally responses and appropriate interactions. This involved multiple meetings. Relationship building takes time. Food, smudging, sharing of tobacco, and of course, monetary compensation. The advocate, who is part of the narrative and has been beating, there we go. There's a picture of the advocate. She's been doing a lot of beating as part of her healing and cultural connection. She sells her earrings online, Women Helping Women on Instagram. Beautiful stuff. And what really struck me, despite the challenging topic and the other often very traumatic experiences that these folks were talking about, there was often laughter and lightness in our interactions. We see these folks as co-creators, as I've said. They really opened up, were extremely generous with their stories. Here, the advocate talks about a very, very traumatic strip search that she had when she was arrested for the very first time by male police officers. Again, this idea of, you'd think it would be part of their job to kind of describe what's going to happen, but nobody told me. Again, some more thumbnails. I know I'm really going fast. Again, just showing the care that Natalie Mark has used in creating these. So in terms of, she's using Greek tragedy masks to remove the identity and features of the police and prison guards and anyone representing the colonial system. We have the poet, Cheese, he goes by. I actually just wrote a letter of support for a Council of Federation Literacy Award for him. He found poetry and playwriting while he was in prison. And he was waiting to meet with me to talk about his experiences, and he wrote this poem as he was waiting. So we're going to include that in the book as well. Finally, just to wrap up, David Robertson, very prolific writer from Manitoba. He's done a lot of work with graphic novels. He says a comic is an exercise in showing, and through that showing, bringing the reader into the world of the story. And I always end, and I think for all of our work in creating access to information, building access to justice, we've realized the importance of relationship building, recognizing everyone's full humanity, individuality, lived knowledge, and potential. Access to justice is a human need, after all. And in the words of Negan Sinclair, I say this every single time when I end, he was visiting men at the Winnipeg Remand Center and reading from his anthology, Manitowapau. He said to these men, "These are your stories, and no one can take away your stories." Thank you.
Thank you so much. Art is really a fascinating way of communicating information, so I really do appreciate that. And I see connections between your presentation and Kirsten's presentation as well, to empower people to use their humanity and transform themselves, essentially. So thank you for that. So we have time for questions. We have about 15 minutes. If you have any questions, you can go to the microphones there. And maybe while you do that, to get things started, I had a question for the four of you. Because this conference is aligned around trying to turn all of that into actionable items, and because I think we do have some policymakers in the room as well, I was wondering what you have to tell them. What is one actionable item that comes out of your research or the action you've undertaken? One thing we can take away from this that maybe we should work on going forward. So.
Can I start from the other side first?
Yeah. Who wants to go first?
Value the work of librarianship. I think this was already brought up. There's been a devaluation of the work of librarianship, certainly within prisons, but also just in public libraries. The profession of librarianship is critical to everything, I think, to all topics, but legal topics as well. We are connectors. We connect communities. We connect people, and we are creative thinkers in terms of creating access to information.
Yeah, I can go next. I think in light of some challenges that website owners have for reaching out to people, I think I'd like to bring up the value of making connections with partner organizations in your area or the province or even nationwide, because I think strengthening the connections will bring the silos more connected. So for example, like we have click law, but then we're not supposed to just rely on Google, for example, for getting people to our websites, but we also work with the communities like the court registry staff, the multiple public libraries in the province to let people know of resources, and not just ours, but it's fluid exchange among the legal community and the community organizations. So, yeah, thanks.
Thanks. Do you want to share?
I heard there's some policymaker in the room, so that's good. So basically, I think, yes, I do share some philosophy around what you said, and it's not that I do it, that the conception itself is related to. But I think that one of the mistakes we are often making is that we believe on one conception, and we have not worked around the different conception. And a way to explain that is that from a traditional judicial conception of justice, having someone that murdered another one in prison for 25 years, it's just. For the mother of the one who died and passed away, it's unjust. Also the same for the mother of the person that is going to prison, unjust. Different reason, that is based on different conception of justice. So we are in a rule of law, a state that have a job to do, and they are not opposed. Like this is not that the judicial conception is not good. It is fully good within that specific conception. And after that, we can look at the expansive vision of access to justice, and we say that, well, that's good for the collectivity. Equity is really what we should be looking for. But now, on the standpoint of a person or a unit, like a living organism, like we are experimenting, like the mother of the two-person, justice is different. So we need a framework, and we need to identify these framework, but they are not separate. It's kind of, they start from the very rule of law principle, hardcore positive law, to the very open person approach. And there's no line, there's just a fluid of information, and this is what I would like to share. Like there's not one conception of justice or access to.
Thank you. And Éliane?
Merci. Je pense que, pour résumer très brièvement, comme trickle-down accessibility, comme à partir du... Le texte de loi est comme au sommet de... les textes qui... Ça va générer d'autres textes pour, comme, que ce soit des documents d'accompagnement ou des one-pagers de description de politique. Donc, le texte de loi génère d'autres textes. Donc, si on à partir de la source même, on travaille à l'accessibilité, ça ne peut qu'améliorer ou du moins de réduire le temps qui est nécessaire pour comme, produire davantage. Et puis... c'est un peu difficile comme légiste souvent de faire cet exercice-là parce que, tu sais, comme moi je rédige, mon client, ultimement, ben, c'est le ministère qui me demande de rédiger un projet de loi. Mais de poser la question aux gens devant moi, tu sais, comme, qui va lire ce texte-là selon vous? Comme, tu sais, est-ce qu'on parle uniquement d'acteurs dans un milieu très restreint, ou est-ce qu'au contraire, il n'y a pas une dimension publique à ça? Donc, c'est là. Donc, travailler sur l'accessibilité en amont dans la mesure de ce qui est possible.
Excellent. So now questions from the room. If you could please state your name when you're asking the question. I don't know who was first, so you can go ahead.
Tu es allumé? Oui. Bonjour, Nicolas Enfield. Je suis de la Chambre des notaires du Québec. J'ai beaucoup apprécié les commentaires sur le fait que l'information, la promotion de l'information est vraiment un des grands défis pour notre état de droit et qu'on doit mettre beaucoup d'efforts là-dedans et j'y adhère pleinement. Peut-être une question ouverte pour tous les panélistes. Je suis beaucoup dans la théorie des petits pas. Et depuis plusieurs années, on explique le fait que le langage clair devrait être une compétence que les intervenants ou les professionnels du droit aient. Force est de constater que même si on l'écrit que c'est une compétence à avoir, c'est toujours difficile pour plusieurs d'entre nous d'avoir d'atteindre le niveau de compétence requis en langage clair. Avez-vous une proposition de petits pas selon vos perspectives différentes pour aller vers là, pour au moins faire un petit pas par en avant?
Merci pour la question. Tu veux commencer? Peut-être. Ben, Éliane, vu que la présentation portait aussi sur le...
je peux me lancer peut-être. Je pense qu'en tant que professionnel, en tant que professionnel du droit, on est comme exposé très tôt dans notre parcours à comme une manière de rédiger, une manière de penser, comme des termes. Et puis, pour moi, la compétence de langage clair, il faut la décomposer. T'sais, oui, OK, comme le droit vient avec ses termes techniques comme n'importe quel autre domaine. On ne demanderait pas à des professionnels de la santé de comme, trouver un autre mot pour comme, cancer ou amygdalite, comme le terme est là. Mais les termes juridiques existent. Par contre, c'est tout ce qu'il y a autour. C'est comme je dis, travailler sur le style, puis sur la question de syntaxe, notamment. Pour moi, ça peut être peut-être un petit pas, justement, comme dire, il faut qu'on compose avec le vocabulaire, mais on peut travailler sur d'autres plans. On n'est pas obligé de rédiger en inversant les termes, comme sans trop m'étendre ici. Sinon, c'est la clé, puis c'est difficile de ne pas sonner cliché quand je veux dire comme c'est quoi le petit pas qu'on peut faire, puis c'est d'avoir gardé en tête pour qui est-ce qu'on est en train de rédiger. Puis je veux dire comme je sais, le problème c'est que c'est vraiment ça qui est comme la clé de voûte de l'entièreté du processus, mais encore une fois, tu sais, comme se faire une représentation mentale de pour qui est-ce que je suis en train de rédiger versus aller rencontrer ne serait-ce qu'une seule personne qui fait partie du groupe d'usagers qu'on a en tête et de voir ce que cette personne-là peut nous apporter, ça génère des conversations extrêmement intéressantes aussi.
OK. De ma perspective, de la perspective de ce que je viens de parler, j'ai parlé du conciliateur. Puis, tu sais, j'ai dit que j'avais, en passant, merci beaucoup, un confrère, un notaire, c'est toujours intéressant. Et puis, je pense que je vais utiliser même l'exemple de la pratique notariale. Okay? Donc, l'idée du langage clair. Okay? Quand on dit à qui il est destiné, okay? C'est quand même un texte spécialisé avec une expertise, donc c'est pas pour rien qu'on a toutes des formations en droit. Il y a quand même, c'est quand même un construit, c'est une expertise. Okay? Le rôle du conciliateur dans le contexte que j'utilise, puis pourquoi que je préconise le terme conciliateur à facilitateur, qui est en fait le vrai terme utilisé par Rogers quand il parle de communauté ou en tout cas d'intervention, c'est que ça engage deux expertises dans notre cas. Okay, la première expertise, c'est l'expertise du processus de transformation. Okay, ça, c'est vraiment l'approche centrée sur la personne, une espèce de relation éthique entre ton client et toi. Dans l'optique d'une posture approche centrée sur la personne. Puis après ça, il y a l'expertise aussi de ta connaissance. Okay. Donc, le langage clair, moi, en fait, un texte de loi qui voudrait être clair pourrait peut-être m'induire en erreur dans ma propre expertise, parce que dans le fond, on est en train de réinterpréter ça devant les tribunaux par après. On a nos codes, comme on a quelque chose de solide. Je ne sais pas si c'est là ou c'est la responsabilité du conciliateur de pouvoir, transférer tout ça. Je vais faire le lien aussi avec ma consoeur, les consoeurs ici. Il y a des ressources disponibles. Les clients peuvent accéder à des textes de loi. Ils peuvent les lire, mais ils ne possèdent pas la connaissance. Comme notre rôle de conciliateur, si on veut, le conseiller juridique qui agit comme conciliateur dans une posture de conciliation avec ce qu'il y a, l'idée, c'est de donner accès à la personne à des informations ou des ressources déjà disponibles dans son écosystème. Donc, notre rôle, c'est de dire, OK, je pense que ça peut être telle disposition. Laisse-moi aller vérifier, je te reviens. Regarde, juridiquement, ça ressemble à ça. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? Ça veut dire dans ton compte. C'est quelque chose qu'on fait dans notre pratique au quotidien. Surtout dans la pratique notariale, où on a une relation de proximité souvent. Donc, l'approche centrée sur la personne, le rôle du conciliateur, dans la façon que je le présente, est déjà applicable. Puis, plusieurs pratiques en droit de la famille, à moins qu'on soit vraiment un droit positif ancré, solide. Là. Mais la réalité, là, c'est qu'on n'aborde jamais un divorce de façon inhumaine, là, parce que c'est ces relations-là. D'où pourquoi l'État ne devrait pas intervenir. Dans mon scénario, il ne devrait pas être le conciliateur, il devrait être celui qui construit la paire de lunettes pour qu'on puisse, en tout cas, nous donner les ressources pour qu'on puisse la construire. C'est ça, je dirais.
Other comments on that?
Just to make sure that I understood the question properly, looking for small steps in how to really achieve like plain language, and what I would say is starting at not starting, but including law schools and law students, because we work with a lot of law students, and we're creating FAQs with them, and it's very difficult to convince these students that plain language is okay. It still means you're smart and you know the law. So I would say inviting people to the law schools and to these classes to talk about the lived experience of the folks looking for information, but also of organizations who are working directly with these folks, to perhaps bring that people-centered focus.
Good. So I know I'm the only thing holding you up for lunch, so maybe we're going to take those two questions quickly, and if we have quick comments to end, and then you can all go to lunch.
Okay, for this to not have an answer, Andrew Pillier, BC's Access to Justice Center for Excellence. Desi, this question comes from your slide when you put up next steps and sort of the Google search piece, sort of improving Google search. It occurs to me that Google is no longer doing search, that they've moved into not talking about search anymore, but using their AI to adapt how people use Google to find information. It brings the question of what can we do as knowledge creators in relation to an ecosystem that we have no control over, but what kind of interface can we hope to have and what steps can we take? But that's just a question for thought.
Thank you. And Paul, maybe?
Mine wasn't so much a question as to follow on from the question around what small steps can be taken in terms of advancing plain language. There's an ISO standard for plain language, ISO 24495, the general one. And then in 2025, the ISO standard for legal language was released, and that cuts across legal systems and languages. It's designed to be used by speakers of many languages. So, unfortunately, it's behind a paywall. Buy it and read it. Like, that's a small step, and I think a significant one.
Thank you. Daisy, did you want to react to the first question?
Yeah, I think the change from like the Google search to now just very similar to ChatGPT. I think it's supposed to be rolled out this week, or yeah. So like I mentioned before at the closing, I think we think strengthening connections with other helpers in the community would help reach out to people who could benefit from public legal information that are trustworthy and speak in plain language. Because I think we all know if you ask Google something, it may be true, it may be not. And of course, they have their own bias, while the public legal information publishers have a different perspective or different bias, depending on their audience, the audience that they're writing those for. So yeah, so I think I mentioned something like connecting with the court registry staff well, in our case, we have a courthouse library location in each courthouse building, so we strengthen our connection with them. So when it's appropriate, the staff at the court registry can refer people to ClickLaw to find some trustworthy legal information online, if it's appropriate again. Also building or strengthening connection with public libraries would help inform their patrons that there are these range of free legal information that they could go to instead of using ChatGPT. And yeah, again, I'm talking about like bias is different from each information sources, and that is something to be aware of. And yeah, so just working with more players in the province, and so that they know when to refer to appropriate resources. Not only us, but again, like there's a community, there's an ecosystem of useful resources and services. Thanks.
Thank you. And yeah,
Sorry,
very, very quick.
I just wanted to.
QuickLaw never sued ClickLaw?
ClickLaw.
QuickLaw.
ClickLaw.
I know, but has QUICK never sued ClickLaw?
Oh, there was they actually, back in 2009 when ClickLaw was launched, the old version, we were approached by them, and we made like an agreement of some sort. But then, years after that, when it was 2023, kind of, we reached out to them, hey, we're going to change ClickLaw to a new version, and they just didn't say anything. So, yes, thank you.
Thanks. So one very quick last word, because I think lunch has to come in. So
basically on the AI, it's just another beast. I just done a conference on that, and it's very interesting. It's going to come. Like, we're going to learn how to use this tool, not this identity. Little step, professional order should be involved into this clarification of conception. Andrew Pillar, because of him, I am sitting here, because he's the one that put me in 2022 with his article just to go through this, does that mean? So I would like to thank him and for his contribution and also his open mind. And so thank you.
So with that, Thank you all for your attention. And
can I just add something?
Very quickly.
I think it's really important that we do not assume that everybody has access to the internet, that everybody, people in prison do not. We need still print materials. We need materials in audio. We need materials with images. Like the self-represented litigants, we have lots of them in prison, and unfortunately all of those resources, those great resources created by the National Self-Represented Litigants Project, are only available online, so we have to actually print them out ourselves.
Good point. So we're going to end on that. Thank you for your attention, and thank you to our speakers for their presentations.